Professor Gantentbein, you are teaching a module in our program on financial valuation. Could you shortly describe us what the contents of this module is and what the people are going to learn there?
Yes, at the core of the module, we talk about valuation, particularly corporate valuation, because essentially it's where cost of capital and financing decisions, but also the ability to understand and assess business models of corporations come together.
Sounds interesting. Now, a very important ingredient, you mentioned it, is the determination of the cost of capital, that is the discount rate of future cash flows. And many practitioners actually have quite difficulties in a way to find a good approach to determine the cost of capital. What are the more recent developments there, or some recommendations which you can give us?
Yeah, it's, as you say, cost of capital are definitely a key ingredient, and we need, on the one hand, cost of capital for the valuation of individual investment projects. That's what companies are doing on the one hand, but we also need cost of capital on financial markets, particularly the investors need it to assess investment opportunities. And I think we need to simply understand it's a clear or direct link to the risks that these investment projects, but also the companies where investors might be investing actually face. So we have these risks being reflected, and yes, definitely this assessment of risk is probably one of the key challenges.
Mm-hmm. If you want to determine the value of a firm, you need actually, from the perspective of theory, the weighted average cost of capital. Is this a concept well understood in practice, or are there problems in implementation of the weighted average cost of capital?
I mean, we have different valuation concepts that we talk about in this module, and the one element is clearly also looking into weighted average cost of capital as one ingredient for the enterprise valuation of corporations. There it's important to understand how the company is being financed on the one hand, but also looking, as I said before, into the business risks, or understanding the business model. And from there, one can derive the cost of capital on the one hand for debt, but also for equity. So having these ingredients playing together is probably the first step. Secondly, it's also important to understand it's actually not always a precise science, right? So we have a model, but we also need to know that the model is just the basis for actually reflecting about the cost of capital. Calculating these cost of capital definitely is a challenging element as we face now in times of volatile interest rate environment and uncertain business outlook. This is where, of course, one needs to adjust or add maybe some premiums to the cost of capital that ultimately also translate into the weighted average cost of capital and into the valuation of entire companies.
The more is it important to have a clear concept what one thinks is the adequate cost of capital. Thank you very much, Professor Gantentbein, for this interesting talk.
Okay, thank you very much.